If your characters don't feel real, your dialogue will always fall flat no matter how good the rest of your script is. Most screenwriters struggle with this because they focus on the wrong things when it comes to dialogue. So in this video, I'll show you the exact shift that helped me stop writing bad dialogue and how you can use it to bring your dialogue to a professional level. First, you have to understand the main difference between dialogue that's unnatural or forced and dialogue that feels like real conversation. Otherwise, every word that comes out of your characters' mouths is just going to make people cringe. But when you can nail it, your dialogue will blow any other scripts out of the water. To understand how this works, take a look at this scene from Goodfellas.
What do you do?
What?
What do you do?
I'm in construction.
You don't feel like you're in construction.
No, I'm a union delegate.
Now, we know that Henry is not in construction. You know, we know that he's a gangster. He kills people. He steals things. He's a criminal. So that very simple line, "I'm in construction," has so much depth to it. Just think about everything it says. You know, it's basically Henry saying, "I don't know you yet, so I'm just going to tell you this more normal sounding job to avoid telling you what I actually do." There's weight behind it. What he says out loud is not what he means. The reason this is so powerful is because it makes the audience figure things out and they don't even realize they're doing it. It just feels like a normal conversation. You know, it isn't trying too hard. This is known as subtext. But how do you apply it to your own dialogue? It's by using a 5-step process I like to call the iceberg process. You can get the worksheet to guide you through every step by clicking the link below. Step 1 is just to write your dialogue without any subtext. Just write out your scenes the way you would as though you had no idea what subtext even meant. Let the most boring, surface level conversations spill out of you. All that matters for this step is that you get it down. For step 2, in Whiplash, the scene where Fletcher sits down at the bar with Andrew lasts for about 4 minutes. It's where he tells him that he got fired and he reveals his justification for why he treats his students the way he does. And the purpose of all of it is for this moment right here.
Hey, Andrew. Listen, I have no idea how you're going to take this, but the band I'm leading for JVC, my drummer is not cutting it. You understand what I'm saying?
No.
I'm using the studio band playlist. You know, Caravan, Whiplash. I need somebody who really knows those charts.
For Andrew to say yes and come play for him again, that scene before had to happen. He had to believe that Fletcher had no idea that he was responsible for him losing his job, and we had to think that they were on good terms now. That's the subtext here, and I'll show you how in the next step. But between everything your characters are saying, whether it's a plot point that you're trying to move forward or a trait that you're revealing, there's only one detail that matters. Your job is to figure out what that detail is. What's the point of the scene? All the dialogue should revolve around that, and I'll show you how to do it in a minute. First, you need to do step 3, and this is where it starts to get fun. This is where your characters start to actually feel like real people. With every word that Fletcher says in that scene, he wants to do one thing: win Andrew over so that he can destroy him.
I know it was you.
But we don't know this yet, and that's where subtext comes from. That's what makes characters feel real. In every single scene, you need to know what your character's goals are. This is the make or break. I don't care how witty it is or how much tension you have or even how authentic they're being. If every character in your scene doesn't have a goal, you can't write good dialogue because their goal is what drives everything they say and do. I'm almost tempted to challenge you to go to any great scene of dialogue and find one where the characters don't have a clear goal. Because the thing about goals is that they show themselves in very mysterious ways. You know, like if you're talking about a slice of life movie like Good Will Hunting, you could argue that Will doesn't have a goal in the "Do you like apples" scene.
Do you like apples?
Yeah.
Well, I got a number. How do you like them apples?
But he does. He's asserting dominance over this guy. You know, he just got a girl's number. He's bragging to him. Maybe you think of Pulp Fiction. I can't tell you how many times people say, oh, well, in the first scene where they're talking about Europe and a Royale with cheese, they have no goal. There's no subtext there. Yes, there is. They're about to commit a murder. Something very inhumane, no matter how many people you've killed. This is their way of coping with that. You know, they're talking about something completely irrelevant and just avoiding the fact that they're about to kill a couple of people.
You know what they call a quarter pounder with cheese in Paris?
And what do they call it?
They call it Royale with cheese.
Royale with cheese.
That's right.
And you might think, oh, that's not true. But then explain to me why they're talking about this stuff until the very second they open the door where they just like switch into their hitman mode.
It's not a date. It's definitely not a date.
Hey, kids. How you boys doing?
My point is this. The goal does not always have to be some obvious, plot relevant, this is what I want statement. It could be to win an argument, you know, to impress their boss, to make money, or it could be something they don't even know is their goal. Maybe it's to protect their ego, to feel safe, or to seek validation. You know, it's something you can only figure out if you understand your character's nature. And that brings me to step 4. For this, step 2 and 3, they sort of come together. Again, the purpose of the scene in Whiplash is to get Fletcher and Andrew acquainted enough that it makes sense for Andrew to join his band again. Fletcher's goal is just to make Andrew think that they're on good terms with each other. He wants to screw Andrew over, but he knows him well enough to know how to go about that. You know, he leads him on. He makes him think that everything's just fine, just to blow it up in his face later.
Yeah, I guess maybe you don't have it.
When you can do this right, subtext is created as a byproduct. You have the scene's purpose and you have your character's goal. Now, you use who your character is to construct how they go about their goal. Fletcher, if you couldn't tell, he's kind of an angry guy.
Why the fuck didn't you say so?
Metz, why are you still sitting there? Get the fuck out!
1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4.
Rushing or dragging?
Rushing.
So you do know the difference. Am I to understand that you cannot read tempo?
I'm upset.
Louder! Motherfucker! Faster!
He's got all this rage and hate built up towards Andrew, but he's also smart enough to be able to control himself. And instead, he takes advantage and he manipulates him.
Some parents got a kid from Sean Casey's year, I think, to say some things about me. Although why anybody would have anything other than peaches and cream to say about me is a mystery. That's a good laugh, right?
I'm sorry.
No, listen,
Nah,
hey,
I'm sorry.
I get it. I know I made enemies.
Another character might not be able to hold themselves together. You know, they mess it all up and they blow a fuse or something. So how do you do this in your screenplay? Let's say you're writing about a chef who accidentally dropped a Band-Aid into some celebrity soup, and his goal is to stop him from eating it. So what are they going to do? Are they going to act all secretive about it and try to get it out without them realizing? Do they just avoid the situation completely? These are the things that make your characters unique. You want to combine your character's personality with their goal. When it comes to how they go about it, what makes them them? You know, what do they say? What do they not say? Finally, step 5 is just refining the dialogue. Remove anything that doesn't contribute to their goal. Fix up the actual words they say by aligning it with who your character is. Ask yourself questions like, does this line serve his goal? And is this how my character would go about it? If it works, great. But if not, now you have a reference you can go back to sort of check which lines work and which ones don't. Here's something you can try. Take a scene from your script where you're struggling with a dialogue. Write down every character's goal in that scene, both external and internal if you can. Then ask yourself, are the words they're saying aligned with their goals? If not, that's where you start. And remember, if you want the free cheat sheet to guide you through all of these steps, just click the link down below to download it right now. But subtext is only the first element. If you're making this mistake, all the subtext in the world is not going to save your dialogue. You hear about this in pretty much every bit of screenwriting advice there is, but it's not usually covered properly. Until now, obviously, by me. I don't know how to explain this other than the phrase, the big bad. Basically, it's the main villain in any high-stakes movie, Ultron, Steppenwolf, Yellow Jacket, but the problem is that a lot of times, these villains just exist for one reason, to stop the protagonist. They have no real motivation of their own. They're just kind of plot devices, so every word of dialogue is just that. If your hero says, this is good, then the villain comes in and says, no, this is bad, and that's it. The problem with this is that it eliminates any possibility of real conflict. Conflict is not just two characters fighting or disagreeing with each other. It's when they both have opposing beliefs and worldviews, and their inherent goals stand directly in each other's way. Take this scene from A Few Good Men.
I have a greater responsibility than you can possibly fathom. You weep for Santiago and you curse the Marines. You have that luxury. You have the luxury of not knowing what I know, that Santiago's death, while tragic, probably saved lives.
Did you order the code red?
I did the job. Did you order the code red? You're goddamn right I did!
Jack Nicholson clearly has his own agenda. He's not just there to fight Tom Cruise. He did what he did for a reason. You know how you always hear people say nobody thinks they're the bad guy? Well, this is especially true for the bad guys in your movies. I don't care what they've done, if they've killed a family of 4, if they've kidnapped the president, or if they've robbed a bank. Think of the Joker in The Dark Knight. Even though he might not seem to have any particular justification, he does. The entire movie, all he talks about is causing chaos and how following the rules of society is beneath humans.
What were you trying to prove? That deep down, everyone's as ugly as you. You're alone.
As a result, all he does is try to bring the people of Gotham down to his level. So, how do you do this with your characters? You need to give all of them as much thought as though they're the main character. This is the only way your dialogue will feel real. They can't just be plot devices or archetypes. I mean, you can start there, but then you need to go a layer deeper. Why are they doing the things they're doing? No matter what it is, they have some way they justify it. Otherwise, they wouldn't be doing it. That's why I love this idea from Aaron Sorkin.
You have to write that character like they're making their case to God why they should be allowed into heaven.
That is how convinced they have to be that they're in the right. Now, I want to show you guys the way I practice writing great dialogue that I still do to this day. I've talked about it before, but it's truly one of the most powerful ways to cement this concept into your brain. The other day, I was rewatching the first Harry Potter, which, by the way, if you haven't seen Harry Potter, then you just hate cinema. Like, it's just a fact. No, but seriously, the scene comes on where Harry meets Malfoy for the first time. After the scene ended, I paused the movie because it was a very powerful exchange.
You'll soon find out that some wizarding families are better than others, Potter. You don't want to go making friends with the wrong sort. I can help you there.
I think I can tell the wrong sort for myself, thanks.
Harry doesn't say anything outright mean to Malfoy, but from the way he pulls his hand away and then that line, I think I can tell the right sort for myself, we know exactly what he's thinking. By the way, do you like my British accent? It was pretty good, right? He's calling Malfoy out. He's saying that he's the wrong sort and that he doesn't like him. And I wrote all of that down. I wrote down the quote and what the subtext was behind it. When you're watching a movie, write down any bit of subtext you notice in dialogue, or even without dialogue. Just any time that you notice the characters say something, but it means something completely different. Basically, when you find yourself like putting the pieces together in your own head. So the simplest example I can think of is your character comes home from school and his mom asks, "How are you?" And he says, "Fine," but he's clearly not fine. That's subtext. The reason this is so powerful is because when you can learn to recognize how writers use this in professional movies, it becomes second nature to do it in your own writing. Only do this when you're watching a movie that you've already seen before, though, because if you try to like study while watching a movie for the first time, at least in my opinion, it just sucks the fun out of it. And you could do this in anything. I do this in real life. I mean, people kind of get annoyed at me for doing it, but like if my friends say something and I know what they mean on a deeper level, like I know the subtext behind it, I'm gonna write it down and be like, hang on, wait, there was subtext in what you just said. Like, we'll be having like a deep conversation, and then I'll just write all that down. But if you've mastered subtext and you know the purpose of every scene, yet you're still struggling to get your dialogue down onto the page, to fix this, just watch this video here where I'll show you exactly how to solve all of that.